And here's the thing. Where does this story end? I mean, there's one thing we do know. Let's just cut to the chase here. All of our political leaders favour the lockdown approach. They differ only slightly. And if Boris carries on locking down huge regions like Liverpool and Manchester, we'll pretty much end up where Keir Starmer is proposing anyway. The fog continues to drop. An eerie blanket descends onto the UK news agenda. Where do we start? Well, I mean, let's just look through some of the figures and the issues surrounding this story. Remember, we are talking here about the response to, can we now call this a second wave? We've had epidemiologists who said, no, it's just the first wave continuing. How do you just... It feels like a second wave. And listening to the Health Secretary in the Houses of Parliament a little earlier on, the Undertaker, I think that's now the name for Matt Hancock. The Undertaker has spoken. He talked about the killer virus. He talked about it being, slightly paraphrasing here, rapidly finding its way through the United Kingdom. It wasn't good. Of course, we know the effects of what has happened. Universities, for example, are an obvious place. University students starting their courses imprisoned almost on campus. In many cases, the best they can hope for is a corduroy-clad teacher at the end of a Zoom call. Hardly the dizzy heights of a lecture hall. Schools are back in business, but only just. Most sort of practicing COVID measures in a way that makes the classroom look more like a medical centre than a place of learning. We can move on to other areas. Employment is the obvious one, isn't it? We know that employment has gone up 0.4%. We've now got 1.5 million people who are out of work. And one respectable think tank believes that figure will be 3 million. Just let that settle. 3 million by the end of the year. And we know about the jobs that have gone. British Airways, 12,000 jobs. Rolls-Royce, 9,000. TUI, axing 8,000. M&S, nearly 8,000. Cineworld, 5,500. Centrica, owner of British Gas, 5,000. EasyJet is reported 5,000 jobs there, including more than 700 pilot roles. Virgin Atlantic, at least 7,000 jobs. Bentley, 1,000 jobs. The National Trust, 1,300 jobs. Green King will shut dozens of pubs, a loss of 800 jobs. Marston's, the brewery today, announcing again jobs going there. That's just a cursory list, by the way. There are many more to add to that list. And then, of course, you get on to the obvious, the health question. Think mental health and the effects there. It isn't just the fact that people aren't getting treated. It's the fact that referral centres aren't necessarily open. Support groups aren't necessarily open. Those living in isolation who previously would have perhaps enjoyed those infrequent but perilously important visits to the supermarket just to see another face. They don't happen. This is killing people. The mental health aspect of this is absolutely dire. People locked up in their homes for half a year. These are stories, because we talk about this every day, that it kind of rushes over you a little bit. There's a lot of people locked down. It's only when you really stop to have a think about where we are at and the current situation we have found ourselves in and the individuals that are involved in these stories who collectively make up many, many thousands or millions of people, you begin to realise just where we are at. That's mental health, physical health. The picture gets as if it could get any worse. Waiting lists, areas of the NHS where people cannot get tested, scans cancelled, cancer treatment not happening as it should do. Nearly 1 million women waiting to have mammogram tests done, all put on pause because of coronavirus. The list goes on. And then, of course, we have the new system. Liverpool, Tier 3. Manchester, what's happening in Manchester? They're going the same way. London, Tier 2. I said at the beginning this would end in tears. I wasn't wrong. And this is where we are at. 0344 499 1000. I want to just put out, is this an easy question to answer? Where does this story end? Where does this story end? I understand the conspiracy theorists. I know some people don't like that word. It isn't that, by the way, and there are some very seductive videos and words written that will take you down that path. It is a dark rabbit hole. Go there if you want. Treat it as entertainment. Look at it as kind of pseudo-comedy, if you wish. And, of course, much like, what are they called? Cold readers, aren't they? Psychics, cold readers, where you think, how did the psychic know my birthday? How did the psychic know the name of my partner? How did the psychic know what I did for a living? If you watch enough Darren Brown programs, you begin to realise there is an art to cold reading. And similarly with a lot of the kind of conspiracy video stuff, it's very clever. It's not intended, I think, to be necessarily a scam. It just depends on how you use words and how you use statistics. And if you look at official bodies, doctors and nurses and scientists, and I don't believe they've all signed up to some Illuminati script where they're all lying to us about what's going on. So as seductive as it might be when you look at some of the conspiracy theories, it is bonkers, okay? So don't go there, but use it if you want to. You may find the odd factoid in there that you find interesting and entertaining, because that's kind of how it works. You thread in some absolute cast iron unequivocal facts, and you kind of merge that with opinion or speculation or the morphing of a fact in order to sort of squeeze out something that sounds outrageous. Really? This is the plan? Agenda 21. The United Nations are taking us there. That isn't, of course, what is happening. What is happening is a planet that hasn't got a Scooby-Doo what to do with a pandemic. It's kind of as simple as that. 0344 499 1000. And when I mentioned this a couple of days ago, that Ricky, our producer, sent me a text saying this is going on forever, isn't it? Or words to that effect. And I saw that written down, and I thought, yeah, we just wake up every morning and get on with this kind of new reality, and we're not really digesting. Perhaps it's a kind of human condition. You know that business of if you have a car crash and you don't remember any details of it because the brain has a great way of forgetting trauma. Are we kind of dealing with a bit of that on a day-to-day basis? I wonder if we are. So we just kind of get along with it, and we can just about get around, but we're still sort of slightly in jail in many respects. And if you're in Liverpool, Manchester, and London coming at you from the rear as well, then you will be sensing that a little bit more again. Where does this story end? That's what I'd like to know. Can a virus just leg it at some point? Can a virus go, I've had enough. I need things to live on. But frankly, this is proving too tricky. Can you outwit the virus? Can human behaviour somehow usurp the incredible scientific instincts of a virus? I don't ask that question glibly. Genuine question. I don't know how it functions. So we all stay indoors for X amount of time and then it just suddenly disappears on us. Or do we ultimately all have to get it, or do we just wait for the vaccine? As far as I can see, there are the only three choices, and I think we can probably discount the first one. 0344 499 1000. So look at the list. Look at the list. I just cobbled that list together, by the way. I literally cobbled that list together. And that's about employment. It's about mental health. It's about physical health. It's about schools. It's about university. It's about the workplace. It's about redundancy. It's about the economy. I forgot to add, we are £2 trillion in debt. And all of this, by the way, all of those facts, they are facts that I gave you there, for a virus that will not kill 99.9% of people. And those, sadly, that the virus will take will be people who are predominantly elderly, predominantly in their latter years. I think the average age of a COVID person who dies is 82. The average lifespan in this country is 81. So COVID patients are apparently outliving patients without COVID. How do you couldn't make that one up, could you? And of course, people with underlying health conditions. And that can happen. We know that there are cases, and I think the Undertaker mentioned it in Parliament earlier today when he said, it can get young people. We know that. Influenza can get young people. I know they're not all direct comparisons. I'm not making mischief. I'm not from that school of thought. But there are some irredeemables here that I think we'll be failing not to dwell on for a moment. And when you look at that whacking great big list, as we begin to enter another lockdown, and again, I'll say what I said at the very beginning, all politicians here are in agreement. They have slightly different ways of talking about it. Keir Starmer, his 2-week circuit breaker thing. Boris Johnson just slowly closing us down by instalments, it seems. 0344 499 1000. So let me simplify it and stew this one down to one very basic question. How does this story end?